So this morning I wanted to start a new series. I had an idea yesterday and I think that you guys might find this helpful. So my family, 2 of the 4 of us that live in this house can't eat gluten, and one of us, a different person, cannot eat dairy, and I have an anaphylactic allergy to pork. So there's these certain food restrictions that we work with on a regular basis. And another thing that we do is we try very conscientiously, one, to eat healthy most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, and also to be very conscientious of not wasting a lot of food, as well as eating on a reasonable budget. And recently I've noticed that food prices, really the cost of all goods due to the inflation rate, are rising, and I thought maybe a series on budget meals and thrifty ways to cook with some dietary restrictions. I'm gonna focus on gluten and dairy because that's what's prevalent in my house. There'll also be some vegan options because we are not vegan, but we try to eat a lot of food that is vegan or vegetarian, or a combination of both. Certainly we eat meat and we eat animal products, but we are aware of some of the health benefits of focusing on a plant-based diet, as well as some of the financial, economic, and environmental benefits of doing that. So I'm gonna have my little coffee, and the first thing I'm gonna show you today is I'm gonna go and take a quick look through my pantry, and today's goal is for the rest of this week, I'm gonna try not to really buy any groceries, and I'm gonna use what I have. So the concept of this budget video is how to make meals out of sort of the random stuff you have in your freezer, your refrigerator, and your pantry. So today, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of get an idea of what I have and sort of make a plan for the rest of the week. And I'll probably make at least 1 or 2 things today. All right, let's take a look at my pantry. I have not organized anything. I've not really taken like stock of what I have, and I'm just going to kind of scan through and see what can be used here. We have a bag of pasta, we have like 3 jars of spaghetti sauce, bunches of tuna, cranberry sauce. I know that back there there's some coconut milk, dates, raisins. What's back here? A bunch of bone broth. These are like 4 different kinds of jelly because we can only get them from one place. A jar of peanut butter, got some crackers, some rice noodles, different types of oils, and down here there's rice and oats and chia seeds and beans and all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna kind of forage through there and figure out what I can make out of that. Now, quick little stock of the freezer. All right, we have some chicken, there's a roast beef back there, there's some ground beef back there, there's some Beyond Burgers in there, some berries, a bunch of butter. These are already cooked chickpeas. I've actually used up most of the pre-cooked beans that I have. I normally cook, and I might do some of that this week just to kind of show you how I do that, but I will normally pre-cook black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, sometimes lentils, sometimes lima beans, all kinds of different sorts of beans that I will incorporate into different recipes. So right now I think the only ones that I have left are chickpeas. And then we have some like pineapple, oranges, bananas, a couple of bags of broccoli, some more bone broth. Apparently I have a lot of bone broth. And in the fridge, we have plenty of food in here. It's just sort of a random assortment because we don't, so that big bowl is a lentil soup I made. There's tofu, eggs, some chicken that I already have thawing. That's actually a little pie thing that I made. Some little leftover things. There's some cashew cheese that I made. These are leftover from the football game that we make for the football players every week. The 2 people who can't eat gluten can't even touch them. There's some champagne back there. We're definitely going to have to use that up. And a single little lonely beer, some seltzer water, and then some random assortment of condiments. Oh, we won't be eating that. That's for our pet bearded dragon. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I think I have a good ingredient list to make some protein balls, which are kind of like a granola bar in a ball form. They're yummy, they're really good. I don't have a ton of chocolate chips, so they'll probably be a little light on the chocolate, which is sad for me because the best part of them is the chocolate. And I think that's probably what I'm gonna start with. Okay, so I just scoured my little pantry. I don't know if I'll use all of these, excuse me, but I will tell you the recipe once I've kind of come up with the whole thing. But usually the foundation of the recipe is some oats. So I've got oats. I have flax meal. Flax meal helps lend a slightly chewier and binding capacity, because flax meal can actually be added to water and is a great egg replacer in baked goods. So I'm probably gonna put some flax meal in it. Chia seeds will actually do the same thing, and both of these are actually all three of these are loaded with fiber, so super good for you. They all contain slightly different mineral and profiles and protein profiles. I have a little bit of chocolate chips. I wish I had like 3 times this much, but that'll have to do. I have some hemp seeds. Hemp seeds, my family doesn't love them because they have almost like a pokey property to them, but when they're in these balls and the honey softens them, they don't really know that they're there, so I'm gonna put them in. And then I found some sunflower seeds. That might be a good addition, or I might blend it up into a sunflower seed butter and add it to the peanut butter instead of just using peanut butter, which is one of the binding agents to help it keep it together. This is honey, sweetness, and binding. I have some raisins and some dates, also can add, but if I put too many things like that, it can start to get like gummy. So I have to decide how many of these elements I'm gonna use. I probably will use at least 3/4 of these. So the other thing that I'm gonna do right now is I'm actually gonna take the chicken that I've been sitting aside. It's not thawed, but it doesn't matter because in the Instant Pot, it doesn't have to be totally thawed. And I'm gonna put it in there to cook it so that I can incorporate it into several other recipe ideas that I have. And you're gonna notice throughout this week in this video, I'm gonna make several things in the Instant Pot. And I will often do that batch after batch after batch. So I might do chicken, then beans, then another kind of beans, then rice, and so on, so that I have all of these things prepared to make meals. The other thing I wanted to let you know in this video is everything that I make, this is more of like a snack, but if it's a meal, I'm going to try and make 8 servings. And the reason why is because in our family, whenever we make a meal, we try and make enough for everyone in the family to have lunch the next day. That's one of the ways that when we reduce the time of making lunches, our lunches are more healthy and more hearty, and it's not just like, it's less processed. So 8 servings. So this is an organic chicken that we got for a pretty good sale at Aldi. You know, meats can be super duper expensive, and organic or free range or grass-fed beef or meat can be even more expensive. But every once in a while when we find a good deal, we'll just buy a bunch and put them in the freezer so that we have them for later. When you're handling chicken, you need to wash your hands because nobody needs to get sick. So I'm not going to do anything fancy with this chicken because I'm going to try and use it in several recipes, and so I will flavor and season it after I've cooked it. I'm going to add some chicken broth because you have to have a liquid in an Instant Pot. It basically steams what you're making. I also have the trivet inside to keep the chicken off of the bottom because sometimes it will give you a burn code if it's touching the bottom, and it helps steam it. I'm going to put some salt and pepper in. This Instant Pot is actually my second one. I've had the first one, I used it so much, I killed it. That's how much I use an Instant Pot. Okay, so I have about 4 pounds of chicken in the Instant Pot, and it takes about 6 to 8 minutes per pound. So I'm gonna run this for about 30 minutes, but the Instant Pot is super forgiving. If you cooked it too long, it just becomes more tender, really. So don't really worry too much about it. Certainly you want to cook it thoroughly, but because it is meat. But yeah, so I'm going to cook that, and then I'm going to use that in other meals throughout the rest of the week. So this recipe is super versatile. You can really modify a lot, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do today, and then we'll see how it comes out. I'm going to do 2 cups of oats, and I'm not that precious with this. It's all approximate. I honestly don't even always measure, but for your benefit, I'm going to measure. A cup of flaxseed meal. I don't know if you guys know this, but I think that flaxseed smells really sweet. I think it imparts a sweet flavor. I don't know. Okay, now I'm gonna put, I wish this was more because it's not even a whole cup. It's like a half a cup, but that's what we've got, so that's what we're going with for the chocolate chips. I'm also gonna just eyeball and throw in a handful of hemp seeds. I would say that if I were to measure this, it's probably 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna do the same thing with the chia seeds. Probably 2 tablespoons. I'm just gonna grab it and throw it in. Again, I'm not very precious about all of this. I'm also going to do the same thing. I think that these would be good with, do I want to use this? I think I'm going to make this into a nut butter. So I'm not going to put those in. So in order to make this sesame seed butter, I'm going to do it in my dry container, my Vitamix. But here's the thing. I don't have enough for it to do it well. So I'm going to add in the remaining peanut butter that I need so that there's enough to make it smooth. So it's probably going to be, I'm going to guess, about a half a cup of this and about a half a cup of that, but let's see if I'm right. So I said sesame seeds, these are sunflower seeds. And the goal here is I'm just using up what I have. And you can make a lot of substitutions. Like if it calls for a nut butter, let's say it calls for peanut butter, you can use almond butter, cashew butter, macadamia nut butter if you really want to spend some money. But in this case, this is what I have, and I don't have any other intention of using it. So why not try it and see how it comes out? Same thing like when it calls for a certain type of oil. Let's say it calls for olive oil and you only have grapeseed oil. It'll probably be fine. So I'm going to add in some peanut butter. And my goal here is for both combined, that's probably a little too much, to be about a cup. If I decide that the recipe has too much peanut butter, add more dry ingredients. If you decide that it is too dry, add more wet ingredients. It's not rocket science. Actually, it is science. It's food science. But it's pretty simple. This is also the time, if I'm going to add raisins and dates, I could put them in now and make it part of this mixture rather than having chunks of raisins. So I'm going to add like 5 or 6 dates to this. Make that 7. This is going to be super loud, so we'll take the sound out of it and fast forward through the boring part, but I'm just going to see if it's done. I feel like this is kind of dry. I might just have to use more honey. That'll work. So it looks like this is going to be too dry the way that it is, but before I assume that, I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients and then I'm going to use it in the mixer. If it feels like it's too dry and it's not going to combine together well, I'm going to probably add some more honey and some more peanut butter. If it does come out the right consistency, then don't mess with it. So my instinct tells me this is going to need vanilla and cinnamon too. Again, I didn't measure. I'm going to say that's probably 3 teaspoons. Cinnamon, I'll guess 2 teaspoons. Now I'm going to start with 2/3 of a cup of honey and then mix it and decide if I need to add more. So I poured it out. It ended up being 3/4 of a cup. So we're going to go with it. And now I'm going to get the hand mixer and I'm going to mix it together. I'm going to show you the consistency and I'm going to tell you how I make the decision whether or not it needs more moisture or not. So I'm just going to stop and I'm going to have you come over and take a look in the bowl. And actually it's turning out to be a pretty good consistency. So when you pinch it, it should have like the ability to form into a ball. So I'm actually not going to... Hello. I'm actually not going to add any more moisture to this because I think the consistency is good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to chill it in the refrigerator for an hour or 2 and then we're going to form it into balls. I find that these are best if they're left in the refrigerator. You can freeze them and they can be saved for later. But if you leave them out, they get kind of soft and they have a better chewiness and structure if they're left in the refrigerator. So I found this jar of, it's like a hazelnut dark chocolate spread, and it had like 2 tablespoons left in it. So I'm just gonna add it in here and do one more mix because that way I can use up the jar that otherwise was just probably gonna sit there. So that's all that was in it. So in that recipe, the energy balls, I used up 4 containers of things where, you know, I used up the rest of a jar of honey, I used the rest of this Nutella type thing, the rest of the sunflower seeds, and what was in here? So now I'm going to start talking about the next recipe I decided I'm going to make. After having looking around in my cabinets in my refrigerator, I think I have the stuff to make like a Mexican bake. I think it's going to come out great. Oftentimes the recipes that I throw together the most random things. My family's like, I love it, can you make it again? And I can't because I have absolutely no idea what I put in it, or it was just like this half of a wilted piece of celery or whatever. So I'm going to take you through what I find and I'm going to put in it, and then I'll let you know if it actually tastes good. Okay, so this is where I'm really going to push the envelope, and my husband, who is behind the camera helping me right now, is going to cringe at several elements of this. But this is why I normally don't include him in the process, because he will freak out. That said, I've decided I'm going to make this little Mexican bake. So I'm cooking the chicken in the Instant Pot now. I don't need all of it. I'm just going to use some of it, like a shredded chicken. But to add to the meat, we have this little bit of chicken left in here and this beef. So I'm going to cut these in little pieces and we're going to incorporate that in. I'm going to cook some black beans and some brown rice in the Instant Pot. Then I have this chili lime seasoning that I'm going to use. And then I'm probably going to finish up this jar of jalapenos. I'm going to make a little side dish for my sister-in-law who can't eat dairy, but I have some sour cream, and hers, I'm going to use this vegan cheese on hers, but I'm going to use the rest of this bag of pepper jack cheese on ours. Got some little tomatoes I'm going to add in. I'm going to top it off at the end with these 2 avocados. And this is where my husband's really going to freak out. So from the football game yesterday, there's these little tiny packets of Cheez-Its. He's making a face behind the camera right now. He's going behind the camera. But I'm going to crush these up and I'm going to include them in the recipe. We'll find out if it's good. I think it's going to come out delicious. And this is just a great, and I'm going to show you my empties at the end too. And then I have all this salsa, which I think I might actually mix the salsa into the rice, or at least one of them. So we'll see how it comes out when it's all done. I also decided I'm going to make some pinto beans and turn them into like a refried bean. And maybe this will end up almost like a layered dip. And we have some tortilla chips in there, so like it could be scooped out with the chips. I think my family would like that. So it's almost lunchtime. It's like 11:48. So I figured while I'm working on the rest of this and it's all cooking, I would make lunch. So I scoured through my refrigerator again and I found some stuff to make some like fancy grilled cheese. I'm going to put some spinach on them. So I'm going to slice up these little tomatoes. I've got some cheese. I actually think I have some brie cheese in there as well in case this isn't enough cheese. I also may put some pesto on them. I think that could be really good. And then I have a little bit of regular bread for the people who can eat gluten. And then I have gluten-free bread for those of us who can't eat it. And then I have these grapes, so I'm going to wash these up. And so we're going to have grilled cheese and grapes for lunch. And instead of using butter on the outside, I don't know if you know this, you can also use mayonnaise. And I have some chili lime mayonnaise. So now I have to decide, do I use the chili lime mayonnaise or the pesto, because I don't think they would both be good. What do you think will be better? Maybe I should make a couple of each and see which one's better. We decided to go with pesto in the inside. So I'm starting to assemble them now, and I had enough cheese for every sandwich to get a sharp cheddar piece, but not 2 pieces. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to put a piece of cheddar and a little surprise piece of brie in the middle on each sandwich. Boop. And we'll see how that turns out. And then I'm going to add the tomatoes and the spinach. And since obviously this is not dairy free because my sister-in-law is not here, so we don't have to accommodate that. So we will be putting butter on the outsides of them. Now I'm going to start to put a couple of little tomato slices, and I'm just making it work. I'm going to go around, put like 4 or 5 on each, and if I have some more, I'll add some more. I made like a little tic-tac-toe kind of thing because I had a few extra pieces of brie, so I just threw them on. And now I'm going to put a little bit of spinach on them, and the spinach was getting really close to it needing to be used up, and it's more than we can eat in, say, a salad. So I think I'm going to probably make wilted spinach with that, with olive oil and salt and pepper, stuff like that, some garlic, and that'll be good. So this is what our little yummy sandwiches look like pre-assembly. So now I'm going to put them together and I'm going to cook them in the pan, and then that will be our lunch. So I just noticed our butter bell is basically empty, and that's the soft butter. And when you're making grilled cheese and you're trying to spread it across the bread, if it's cold, it tears it up. So since my butter is hard, I have 2 options. One, put the hard butter in the pan and melt it in the pan and then put the bread down. Doesn't really solve my problem on the other side. And then you can also use mayonnaise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some butter in the pan and I'm going to mayonnaise the opposite side of the sandwich. You can see I'm getting pesto in my mayonnaise. Oh well. I filled back up our little butter bell. If you have never seen these, this is a way to keep butter fresh without keeping it in the refrigerator. You can put a little water in there and stick it in. I'm supposed to tell you that. We never put the water in. Shh. All right, here's the moment of truth. See if it's any good. That's really good. That's yummy. So for lunch, I made a total of 6 sandwiches because there was only 3 of us eating, not 4. So I made one for lunches now and then another one for later, either as a snack or lunch tomorrow. Excuse me. So now I want to go through the empties. We used up all the grapes, the rest of the brie cheese, the rest of the sharp cheddar, and then the regular whole wheat bread, which my husband eats, has 2 little butts left, and he likes to eat these with peanut butter for breakfast. So this will be his breakfast tomorrow, and this will be gone in the morning. You like it?
Mm-hmm. That's good.
We'll call that refrigerator grilled cheese sandwich.
I wasn't even hungry, but I might finish it.
Oh, so I took the little bits of meat that were in the refrigerator, and then this is the chicken that I cooked earlier, that's completely plain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in this bowl, and I'm going to add some spices until it tastes like something I think tastes good. So I'm going to start with this chili lime. I think that's probably good. The rest of this I'm going to use for other recipes this week. And I'm going to add this chili lime spice. This might be enough, it might not, but we won't know until we try it. I put a lot. I have no idea how much it is. So I'm going to see how this tastes. Oh, that tastes good. Okay, so because I'm going to make 2, I'm going to make one that has some dairy in it and one that doesn't, so that my sister-in-law can have some too. Ooh, that's warm. This is the rice I cooked. So I cooked this rice, it's brown rice, and I cooked it with chicken broth and the salsa verde avocado, or avocado verde salsa. I think it's going to be good. We will see. So I'm just going to put this in the bottom of the pan. I'm going to take a chance with the Cheetos. I'm going to see how this goes. So I'm going to smush them up. I wonder if this will be any good. It might be gross, but we're going to find out. Why not? So the nutritionist putting Cheetos on her dinner. It's kind of satisfying, actually. I probably should have smushed them finer. But screw it. This is what I'm doing. Oh, wait. No longer dairy free. Whoops. Oh well. Now I think I'm going to take the sour cream and the salsa and mix it together. Okay, so the footage for that video got lost, and so I'm gonna wrap up that video and tell you everything that happened. So actually the casserole came out pretty freaking fantastic, and I was going to take just a couple minutes to help you in case you decided you wanted to make it or something similar, what I did and then how I made it. So you already saw that I had cooked the rice with the salsa verde guacamole in it and in the Instant Pot, and I put a layer of that. And then on top of that, I put a layer of the chicken, and then I mixed the sour cream and the salsa together, and I put that on top, and then I took the little tomatoes and the little jalapenos, and I layered that on top of that. So making homemade refried beans is actually super easy. So what you do is take an onion and saute it in a pan with some oil. And then your refried beans, or rather your pinto beans that you cooked in the Instant Pot, cook them until they're like super soft. Drain them, put them in with the amount you want with the onions, and then add water until it's the consistency you want, and then use like a potato masher or a spoon, depending on how soft the beans are, until it's the consistency you want. Some people want their refried beans like super smooth, and some people want them a little more chunky. So then I put a layer of that on top of the casserole. And then lastly, I finished it with either the regular cheese or the vegan cheese and chopped green onions. and then bake the whole casserole for 30 minutes at 350. So it was definitely weird to add a couple of those different ingredients, but oftentimes I find, I call it refrigerator soup or refrigerator dinner or whatever. Sometimes those are the best meals. The tricky thing is reproducing them. So in this situation, I could reproduce it because I've kind of kept track of it for you guys, but ultimately using up what you have, be clever, be creative. I mean, worst case scenario, it was probably gonna go bad anyway, and you might have made a delicious meal out of it. Another thing to do with that is I wouldn't cook them, but finish them with the avocados. So I had some avocados, and you know how avocados have like a 10-second where it's perfect? Those avocados were like, they weren't amazing. So if you take what's good from the avocado and then put that on the dish as a finish is a nice touch as well. And then it was really easy to reheat and use for lunches, and it did make the 8 servings that I was looking for. And this one I had tons of empties, so for the Mexican bake. So I'm just gonna list them. I finished the salsa, the sour cream, the avocados, the tomatoes, the leftover chicken and beef, the salsa verde, the jalapenos, and the Cheetos. Oh, and the shredded cheese. I finished all of those things in my refrigerator in one dish.